ma'am. Good morning, classmate. I am Shelara Panyares, the first reporters of Bloom Revised Taxonomy. Before I start my reports, let me please read the learning objectives. First, understand the history of Bloom Revised Taxonomy. Second, explore the Bloom Revised Taxonomy, its new terms, terminology, and new emphasis. So, what is Bloom Revised Taxonomy? Bloom Revised Taxonomy as an update to the original taxonomy that made expanded on the vision of the original while revising the language and hierarchy of the popular cognitive process. Dimension referred as the level Bloom taxonomy, it's provide the measurement tool for thinking. Bloom revised taxonomy is a framework that categorizes different levels of cognitive skills and knowledge acquisition. It's provide a structured way to understand how learners develop knowledge and abilities, moving from basic recall to more complex abstract thinking. Where Bloom's taxonomy come from. In 1956, the original Bloom's educational taxonomies was developed by Dr. Benjamin Bloom. The original. In 2001, Lauren Understore, a former student of Bloom as well as David Catwall, updated and revised the taxonomy reflecting relevance to 21st century work for both student and teacher. They changed the taxonomy and the three broad categories, terminology, structure, and emphasis. Revised Taxonomy, published in 2001 by Lauren Anderson and David Catwall, builds upon the original taxonomy developed by Benjamin Bloom in 1956. It uses action verbs to describe the cognitive processes involved in learning, emphasizing the dynamic nature of knowledge acquisition. And the 6 levels, trains in terminology, structure, and emphasis, which is Miss Pregoner will be reported.
Good morning, everyone. I am Claire A. Pregoner, the second reporter of Bloom's Taxonomy. Trains in terminology, structures, and emphasizes. So, Bloom's Taxonomy is a hierarchical classification system for educational learning objectives designed to promote higher order thinking skills. It was initially developed in 1956 by Benjamin Bloom and a group of educators and later revised in 2001 by Lauren Anderson and David Catwall. The taxonomy categorized cognitive processes into 6 levels, arranged in order of increasing complexity. The first is knowledge. This is the most basic level, focusing on recalling facts, definition, and basic concepts. It involves remembering information without necessarily understanding its meaning or implication. The second is comprehension. This level involves understanding the meaning of information, interpreting and being able to explain it in one's own words. Students at this level can summarize, paraphrase, and translate information. The third is application. This level involves using knowledge and skill in new situations. Students can apply concept, principle, and procedure to involve problem or complete task. The fourth is analysis. This level involves breaking down information in its component part of understanding how those parts relate to each other. Students can identify pattern, relationship, and underlying structures. The fifth is synthesis. This level involves creating something new by combining different elements. Students can design, plan, invent, and produce original work. The sixth is evaluation. This is the highest level of taxonomy involving making judgment about the value of information or ideas. Students can critique, assess, and justify their opinions based on criteria and standards. So, This procedure revised Bloom's taxonomy, updated by Anderson and Catwall in 2001, structures the original taxonomy, shifting the emphasis from noun to verbs and clarifying the cognitive processes involved, the 6 levels and ascending order of complexity. First is remembering. This involves retrieving, recognizing, and recalling relevant knowledge from long-term memory. It's about basic recall of facts, term, concept, and procedure, like for example, listening, naming, defining, identifying, and retrieving. The second is understanding. This goes beyond simple recall to encompass interpreting, exemplifying, clarifying, summarizing, interpreting, comparing, and explaining. Students demonstrate understanding by translating information into their own words, interpreting its meaning, and explaining concepts. The third is applying. This level focuses on using learned knowledge and skills in new situations. Students apply concept and procedure to solve problems, make decisions, or complete tasks. For example, applying, using, illustrating, and solving. The fourth is analyzing. This involves breaking down information into its constituent parts to understand how those parts relate to one another and the overall structures. Students differentiate, organize, attribute, and find patterns. Like for example, analyzing, differentiating, organizing, attributing, and comparing. The fifth is evaluating. This level requires making judgment based on criteria and standard. Students critique, check, and justify their judgment, like for example, evaluating, critiquing, checking, hypothesizing, and testing. The sixth is creating. This is the highest level involving generating new ideas, products, or ways of viewing things. It encompasses designing, constructing, planning, and producing. Like for example, creating, designing, constructing, planning, or producing, inventing. This revised taxonomy emphasizes the active nature of learning and the cognitive process involved, making it a more dynamic and useful tool for educators in designing curriculum, assessment, and instructional strategies. This use of action verb highlights the active role of the learner in each cognitive process. Why the changes to easier applicability in school at all levels? So easy tool for planning, teaching, and assessment of learning outcomes, useful for a larger audience. So Bloom's revised taxonomy, what I discussed earlier, is start from remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So the low order thinking skills start from applying, understanding, remembering, and the higher order thinking skills start from analyzing, evaluating, and creating.
So I am the one who report the lower order thinking skills. So it have remembering, understanding, and apply. So first is remember. Remember is it involves recognizing or recalling knowledge from memory. Remembering is when memory used to produce or retrieve definition, facts, it lists or recite previously learned information. The learner is able to recall, restate, and remember learned information. Second is understanding. Understanding it involves constructing meaning from different types of function, be they written or graphics message, classifying, summarizing, inferring, comparing, or explaining. The learner grasps the meaning of information by interpreting and translating what been learned. Applying. Applying it involves carrying out or using a procedure through executing or implementing. Applying relates to or refers to situation where learned materials is used through producing products like model models, representation, interviews, or simulation. The learners make use of information in a context different from the one in which it was learned.
Good morning, ma'am. I am assigned to report higher order thinking skills. Analyze, evaluate, create. Analyze means to examine something in detail, breaking down into its parts to understand the components of structure and meaning. Evaluate means to judge the value of worth or of something based on certain criteria. Create means to bring something new into existence. It involves breaking materials or concepts into parts, determining how the parts related to one another, or how they interact, or how the parts related to an overall structure or purpose. Mental actions include distraction are preparing and organizing the contributes of well-being, able to crash between the parts. The learnings breaks learn information in this part to better understand their information. So breaking material is a concept into parts. So determining how parts related to one another.
Good day, ma'am. I am Graciela Mineria and I am the last reporter about the Bloom's taxonomy, and I will continue the discuss of evaluate. So, the learner makes decision based on in-depth reflection, criticism, and assessment. And the last, create. It involves putting elements together to form a coherent or functional whole, reorganizing elements into a new pattern and structure through generating, planning, or producing. So, creating requires user to put parts together in a new ways or synthesize parts into something new and different, thus creating a new form or product. And then, the learner creates new ideas and information using what has been previously learned.